Well, hi, everyone. Welcome to the Masculine Wilderness Podcast. I'm your host, Tom Perez. I am the founder and CEO of Epic Project, and this podcast is an ongoing conversation among men and the people that love them. And it's about how we show up in the world, hopefully in the best version of themselves. I'm really excited to have this conversation today with my friend Ashton Clark. I'll let him introduce himself in a little bit, but the backstory, we have a tense and bittersweet connection to football. My very last moment playing college football was a bitter loss to Ashton's alma mater, Eastern Washington University. I can literally still remember just with that bitter taste in my mouth, hanging up my cleats and my shoulder pads in the locker room after losing. But that was long before Ashton was born, long before he knew anything about any of this. But Ashton Clark is he's an educator, he's a counselor, he's a coach. He's a husband. He's a dad. Ashton, welcome. Tell us just a little bit about where you are in life right now, and then we kind of want to go backwards a little bit.
Yeah. Thank you. So counselor at Heritage High School. This will be my fifth year, I believe, as a counselor here. My ninth, I think, overall working here. So still coaching. Head basketball coach. Just finished up the fourth year with that. And then I'm back in coaching football. I'm going to be the offensive coordinator this year coming up on the season. Wife is head volleyball coach. Kids are 6 and 8 now. I just finished up some basketball this weekend, actually. So they're transitioning over to lacrosse.
Both of them?
Both of them, yeah.
Both of them. How fun.
No, we were busy throughout the winter, kind of died down a little bit in the spring for a second, but now we're getting back going again for all the sports between football, volleyball, basketball, lacrosse now. So
that's crazy. So Ashton and his wife, Aisha, were students when my wife, and she's still there, same high school, coaching, as is my youngest daughter, who's like across the hall from you in a different office, same department.
We've went through the same, we laugh because we've basically taken the same path. Both Heritage kids, both went to grad school together, and now both here as counselors. So
that's so great. Well, I appreciate you taking the time. I'm always I'm excited and just really curious when I get to have conversations. We've been doing this podcast now done a few of them, but to talk with men who are in their day-to-day life, kind of outside the day-to-day world of fighting human trafficking and all of that, but there's a very definite connection between what you do and what I do, in the sense that you're dealing every day with a population that is vulnerable, and so I want to talk a little bit more about your story, and then we'll come back around to that. But you grew up Vancouver, Washington, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So if you think about your childhood, just growing up in the community, like what were some of the like really formative experiences for you just as a young man, and what were the things that gave you a sense of, okay, this is what it means to be a man? Like how did those messages get kind of implanted in you?
Yeah. I laugh thinking about the things that my dad would tell me all the time. He's I guess old school in the sense, and maybe now we'd say the gender norms and things like that. For me growing up, it was, men take care of everything outside. We cut the grass, we clean the garage, we clean the gutters, we take the garbage out. So for me, that was just kind of growing up. That's what it was. I had to have my chores done. I had to have all my things done to take care of those things. We took the groceries in, but then my sister and my mom put the groceries away. So those types of things, where my dad was very distinct on the things that we were doing, and protecting our women. I'm the oldest of five. So that was always instilled in me, was like, you're the next man in the house. You're the one to help me protect, those types of things were
Yeah.
terms and stuff that he would say. Um, yeah, I think it's good or bad. I think it's something that I instill some of those things as a father now.
Yeah.
And then as a provider, protector type. But I always laugh every time because Aisha loves to cut the grass, and like that would never be a job for you growing up. But
Yeah.
it's funny.
Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely a different day, and those roles are a little more nuanced now. There, so so that was kind of the home front. Did you ever like challenge any of those things, or it's like you just kind of accept it because this is what Dad said? It's
Um,
very similar to me, ironically, even though we're significantly different
yeah.
in age, but very very similar. But yeah, do you ever challenge that, or feel like those weren't necessarily fair
No,
expectations?
I think for me it was. I would challenge my dad in other ways. I think for some of those roles, I was always fine taking those on. Um, but I would try to really get things taken care of early on. I feel like I was never in the house, kind of growing up. I was always,
Yeah,
especially middle school, high schoolish. I was always out doing something, and
yeah,
so those were a lot of times, go cut the grass again, and it's like, well, I just cut it 2 days ago. Like, well, go cut it again. It's like,
yeah,
no, why do I gotta? That's when I would challenge my dad on things like that. But as far
yeah,
as the roles, I kind of just took them on. And when you were asking me that, it's funny. There's something I never forget. I don't even know how old I was. I was probably in middle school. We were shoveling some gravel out in the back, and all I wanted to do was play. And I was challenging, like, I don't want to do this. I'd rather go play. And my dad, you work as hard as you play. If you work hard now, you can play hard after. And something just clicked in the back of the truck as I'm shoveling, like, oh, okay, well, I just started working harder and got it done faster and
yeah,
got to go play. So that was kind of how he was. Like, when we're working, and there's no buts about it.
yeah,
Now, when we're playing, but you got to work first. So,
yeah, yeah. How did that translate? Because I know, I mean, you're an athlete. You competed. How many different sports did you compete in?
uh, 4 throughout high school, but mainly
Yeah.
3: baseball, basketball, and football.
So how did that translate? Or how did that like shape you? Like being a part of that culture. I'm a
Yeah,
pretty much a one sport athlete if you don't count track,
yeah.
But yeah,
I
how did that influence you?
I mean, I think for me, as a kid growing up, and now as a coach player, it just taught me how to grind. To not really have any excuses. Another example, he'd say, all the time, I'd have to go out and put the garbage in the garbage can, and I'd come back and it doesn't fit, Dad. No, it'll fit. Go out there, and he'd come out there and he'd smash it down and it'd fit. And
Yeah,
so that, as I was just growing up, it's like, I knew I'm not going to go back in there and tell him it's not going to fit. I'm going to find a way to make this garbage fit in the garbage can. And so
yeah,
it just, any sport I was playing, anything we were doing, practices, whatever, there was really no quit for me. It was like, well, I'm just going to grind and push through this. And so, and I can think back of like stepping stones where I learned how to be more efficient with things or be better at grinding and my work ethic and those types of things. But I think at a minimum, it just taught me like, there's no excuses. You're working, you
yeah,
got to work, and you got to work hard. So,
yeah, yeah. Do you still like feel like you're hardwired that way now as an adult?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
I yeah, I mean, I do. I just, it's hard for me to, I feel sometimes I'm a little bit too much at times. Because I'm just very concrete with certain things. And, it's hard for me to take no, or to not find a way to work to something. So,
yeah,
I know that sometimes, not everyone's wired the same way I am. So I have to find a way to kind of adjust. And even with my family and, my wife or whoever, or kids here, or coaches, whoever I'm interacting with. I tell my wife sometimes I'm a little bit too much, and I know I need to like find that even ground so I can try to help people get to where I'd like to get them to, or help them get to, but also not put too much pressure on people too. So,
yeah, yeah. What was, if you can recall an incident in middle school or high school in sports, um, what was the most like discouraging moment, if you can think of that you had to face and that you had to overcome?
I probably two. I'd say football was one of my bigger ones. I didn't play football till I was in seventh grade. So my mom she let me play all the other sports. And I remember being in college, calling her back and asking her like, what? Everyone's talking about when they played CCYF or second grade, whatever. And I was like, why didn't I play? And she just laughed and said, well, I never asked you about that one. That was the one she didn't want me to play. So I think when I got into football in seventh grade, I was just like, talented and really good at it. And so all of a sudden I'm like, I want to play in the NFL. I think growing up I was baseball or basketball, but that was that shift for me. So a lot of success, seventh, eighth grade. And then coming into my freshman year, it's like, I want to be a varsity player. And seeing that I'm not going to be a varsity player, I was probably 140 pounds coming into high school. And so just playing through that first year of football right at the start, I'm excited, I'm ready to go. And I broke my wrist in a practice. Wow. And I just remember like I had never broken anything like that, broken fingers and stuff, but never anything where I couldn't play. So that was really hard my first year of high school to not be able to play at all. And then I came back my sophomore year of high school and was going to be, I played pretty much the whole year, but varsity starter, going to start both ways, and dislocated my shoulder. And so that was something I actually could play through that one, but I think it probably came out 3 or 4 times my sophomore year. And so just trying to, like, I felt like when I reflect back, I was like on this path thinking I'm about to just dominate. And my first 2 years, injuries. And I remember it kind of shaped me for the defensive side of football because I had no problem tackling and playing both ways. And once I started dislocating my shoulder, I didn't even want to stick my arm out anymore. So, it kind of changed how I was my sophomore year. And those were just 2 early years for me that were tough for me to like push through because I knew how good I could be, but the injuries kind of hold me back with certain things.
What did you learn in that helped you stick with it?
I mean, really my coaches. So my sophomore year after I had dislocated my shoulder a few times, I think I still had that basketball dream in me that I was like, I'm going to quit football. I'm going to quit football. Mm-hmm. I'm going to go play basketball and focus on basketball. And Coach Nate Beckstead was the head coach at that time. And pulled me down in the coach's office down in there. And my parents, my dad, hey, you're not going to quit anything unless you go in there. You have a conversation with your coach. You're not just going to not show up. So I go in to have the conversation. And he straight up, he says, hey, there's not a lot of 5'9", 150-pound basketball players in the NBA. Like you could play some corner. You could play some receiver. They adjusted some things. I used to play running back. And so they're like, you could play wide receiver. We were running a fly sweep offense at the time. We'll give you fly sweeps. You can run to the sideline. If you don't want to play defense, you don't have to play defense. Just come out. And so I think the coach is just like, we want you to be here. However you can be here, just be a part of it. And so I was like, sure, I'll give it another try. And then started to find success from it again. And so I think not being able to play my freshman year, not being able to have that success, the fear of getting hurt. And then my coach is just like, it doesn't matter. We'll just switch your position. We want you to be out here. So, yeah.
That's a significant, it's an invitation from the coaches, but it's also a great vote of confidence saying, we feel like you have something to offer. What did you do during that season of your life, not the athletic season, but like, what did you do to build on that confidence they had in you? Like, what was your end of the deal?
Once I knew I was switching positions, and then I remember we went down to a football camp in Willamette, and I just started having fun again, I guess. And as we had a really great group back then, I'd say old school in the way of, the seniors and juniors, they might rally you up a little bit, pick you up a little, rough you up, those types of things. But there was also like a love for the team. And I remember just feeling like, again, as a freshman coming in, like, oh my gosh, these guys are huge. They're all strong and all this and that. And being not an outsider, but the young guy. And then as a sophomore playing more and getting those starting spots, being like a part of that. And so honestly, kind of a similar feeling in college in a sense where I look at those guys who have been busting their butt in the weight room and who are putting their all into it and have now
Yeah.
kind of like accepted me to be a part of it. Like I didn't want to let those guys down and
Yeah.
hanging out with them. I remember we just had such a good, it didn't matter if you were a sophomore, a senior, whatever, you could still be a part of the group. And so that was something that early on in my sophomore year, just feeling like, oh, I'm one of the guys. And so not wanting to let people down. And then again, my coaches, I had great coaches that really believed in me and that encouraged me. So just wanting to show everyone like, yeah, I am a good athlete and I am going to play and I am going to play for the team and I want to be
Yeah.
successful too. So
talk a little bit more about what that was doing to you in terms of how you viewed yourself beyond the locker room, beyond the football field. Like how did that shape you just as a young man and in high school? And we'll get to college too because I have some more questions there. But
yeah, I mean, I think I loved the just the success, I guess, of sports. I loved the pressure of sports. I loved, I wanted to score that touchdown or get that last second pass for the shot. The pep rallies, the fans, the students, the wearing your jersey on game day. Like I think just that atmosphere of sports and culture is what just continued to push me through every single sport. And being a multi-sport athlete, like I love trying to, like things are just popping in my head. I love, trying to beat a team in football, basketball, and in baseball. Or I had a lot of friends that I grew up kind of playing with a lot of kids that went to Mountain View. And so I was actually the only kid that just wasn't a part of that team. Some went to Evergreen. But so for high school, I was playing against a lot of people that were on my team for years and years.
Yeah.
So I loved competing against those guys too.
Yeah. What does competition in the way that you're talking about it, what does that do in the mind of I mean, let's talk about men. We can only speak for ourselves, but like what are the positive things that competition can create in a young man's mind?
Yeah, I mean, I think success and failure hand in hand. The chance to, and with that, I get to put in some work, and then if I'm competing when I get out there and it's my time. Now that's kind of the test. I get to see, am I going to have success? Am I going to fail? And then those chances to be able to look at that and identify why. Why was I not successful? Why did I fail? And then rinse and repeat. Let's go back to the drawing board. Let's try to fix that. And I think to not jump ahead or talk about now, but I think that's a big issue right now is not a lot of people want to fail, and not a lot of our kids I see with coaching, they don't want to fail. And so I think that competition, even with my own son, it's like, it's okay. You're not going to win every single time. You're not going to be perfect every time. But how are you going to get better from this one and prepare for the next one? And but I think the failure part is almost sometimes bigger than the success. And that's definitely something I can touch on too at some point. But
well, you're talking about the success and failure and sports helps you experience both of those and process both of those in healthy ways. And what I'm thinking of, I think of the film room.
Oh yeah.
Like that's for anybody that's ever played high school and certainly in college, but man, you want to talk about deconstructing every success, every failure. It doesn't happen on the field, it happens in the film room.
I think as a coach and as a college athlete, I try to explain to my players like how valuable the film is. They want to be out on the court or the field, and I get that, but I'm just like, guys, you can win games in the film room. Like, trust me, you can break down so much stuff. And then my receiver coach in college, we would always say the film doesn't lie. And when we would watch that, we'd be in the middle of practice, we would be in the middle of games. And we would start laughing at each other or laughing at one another or something. Oh, I can't wait to see that on film, or coach is going to play that. And you'd have to watch it 10, 15 times in a row over and over. And you're just like, you couldn't think about anything else except for you knew on play 35, it is going to be the worst 5 minutes for you.
Yeah, it's excruciating.
Yeah.
When we watched film, this was, back in the old days, but it was 8mm film on a projector with a high temperature bulb, and you knew you were, and our coach there was a little button that could just kind of not freeze frame, but it would reverse it,
Yep.
and he'd go back and forth. And if he did it long enough, the heat from the bulb would melt the film.
Yeah.
And if that happened, you knew you were in trouble.
Yep.
Like it was that bad. But yeah, so I can remember that experience. So let's talk about the transition then from high school to college, because that's a big one. And you did the thing that I've spent years coaching as well and then played, but you did the thing that every high school athlete wants to experience. You went from high school to Division I football.
Yeah.
And what was that like? Do you remember the first day rolling onto campus in Cheney, Washington? Because I remember the first day in Missoula, Montana. But what was that day like for you?
Yeah, I mean the first go back to the first day being just a recruit, and going there. I had went to Central Washington before that and was super excited. They had talked to me about playing basketball there too, and getting to be a part of that team as well as football. And then I went to Eastern that following week. My dad was like, just wait, don't commit, just give it another week. And I went to Eastern, and it was like I fell in love with that place, with just similar again to high school, where when I got there at Central, I felt it was just a little bit different. And when I got to Eastern, it felt I didn't know what position guys played. I didn't know if they were first string, second string, third string, walk on. It just felt like the culture and community everybody was together. And so I really fell in love with that part. But making that jump, I was very successful in high school, and, all region, all state, all these things, and got to have all this success and stuff. And I remember getting to Eastern and just, the eye test of seeing all the other recruits when you're there. And it's like, oh, wow. And I was just a tuition guy, and I'm 5'11", 5'10", 5'10 3/4. But I was 162 pounds. So as I'm coming in and there's other guys being recruited in at receiver, they're 6'3", 190 pounds. I'm just like, oh, dang, okay. Like I'm kind of the little guy, and I am the little guy. And so those first few days of the eye test when just the freshmen are there. But then I remember getting out to those first practices, and just it was an eye opener for me. I realized I'm not that fast. I'm not that strong. You're starting to doubt I'm not even that good. And so that first year at Eastern was really tough. Redshirting. I'd never been in a spot, similar to coming in high school thinking, oh, I'm a freshman, I'm going to play varsity. Coming into Eastern, I'm thinking, they might not redshirt me this year. Like looking back, I was definitely redshirting. There was no way I was going to be playing. So that time too was tough for me. That first year, going from being the guy, as we all know, we're all the guy on our high school team, and then you get to college, and now you got to try to find your way to get into there. So
it's definitely a different transition once you got there. Maybe after your red shirt year, like what was good and bad about the culture you found yourself in? Because college sports is a mixed bag, oftentimes in terms of the health or the lack thereof, and in terms of having a healthy culture. But what was that culture, good or bad, in your experience there?
It was really good, I think, from the aspect of your teammates, just like everyone's in it together, kind of that next man up mindset. And when I got there my freshman year, we were really, really senior heavy. Lost, I think, in the first round. I'm picturing the team too, but forgot. Anyways, lost in the first round. And then my second year, I didn't play that much, so that was tough for me too. The downside of that was I suited up for some home games. I don't think I really went on the road much, maybe a couple times, but I wasn't really playing much, but I was, practicing. So that was awesome, going from practice squad-ish to kind of getting some reps at times over with the offense. A huge highlight, of course, we won the national championship that year. So within that, I think it was really cool. I felt like I won the national championship as well, because I remember our defense that year, I think they had like 27 or 26 turnovers on the season that year. I mean, they were just dominating. But the love and respect that they gave to us as the practice squad guys, every week, thanking us, reminding us, gosh, you guys were better than the team we just played. Like,
Wow.
that we really took pride in that. And there was a lot of young guys on that practice squad. So it was like everyone wanted to try to prove themselves. Everyone wanted to try to show why we should be getting reps. But at the same time, we're going to try to give our defense the best look we possibly can. And that love was given back to us.
Yeah.
I can just remember, guys, the appreciation that made me feel good. Again, this senior who's going to be going to the NFL is telling me I'm doing a great job for him. Like, that feels really good. So did I lose you?
Are you back?
Yep.
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
No. I think we'll deal with that. Yeah,
Yep.
there's a little bit of a glitch there. So you're there on campus. You're a college football player on a university campus. What are I guess the perils of that existence that you experience? It's like not the big man on campus, because you're just a receiver. You're not. None of them are big men on campus. But like, what are some of the things that you learned there? Like, does me being I guess what I'm getting at is I'm curious if the thought of you being a football player, or if the culture perpetuated the notion that means something more than it should. Like, was there privilege associated with that?
Yeah, I would definitely say yeah to that.
Yeah.
I think, I mean, in Cheney, small town, and so games were everything, being scoring touchdowns, all those types of things. Yeah, so that atmosphere there was honestly similar to high school in a sense, just because we were such a small town like that.
Yeah. But it was different. It was different because it was the Inferno,
right? Yeah, I mean, and I was there at a really good time because again, 2010 we win the national championship. That's the first year with the red turf. Eastern, I forget the numbers, but I remember our enrollment started skyrocketing. Like, it just we were put on the map there, and so. There was a lot of privilege being a football player and walking around campus, going out in the evenings, those types of things. Like, you felt it.
In a small town for sure.
In a small town for sure, yeah.
Yeah. You graduated what year?
2014.
Okay. Yeah. So what was that transition like? Because I know you had teammates that continued playing.
Yeah.
And you didn't. Just like me.
Yeah.
What was that transition like? So now all of the things that had been so formative for you with athletics, it's like, did you have that moment where you're like, oh, now what?
Yeah, it was. I did get to chase that dream for a second. Once I started grinding like crazy. So my senior year was a little bit different. Long-term relationship that ended at the start of my senior year. And so it was just more of like, I just got to kind of dive into football. But then also like the family stuff, with my brother, that was, throughout the season was just something that I was always dealing with. So kind of just, I was out there not by myself, but, no relationship, no nothing. My family's here, but I'm also in a big moment in my life trying to focus on my senior year.
Yeah.
And so finishing out with a good year and then getting ready for pro day and things like that, and had some success there. And I think everything was kind of hearing the same message was discouraging, that I, wasn't that fast. I wasn't that tall. Yep. You're really smart. You're really detailed with this. You can catch the ball. I can do all those other things, but at that level, it's like size, strength, and speed. And so that was discouraging at times, but I remember the Patriots did a little special teams workout, and I got to go I paid to go to a combine up in Seattle, and was able to get from that one to Detroit. And so I actually got to go to the Lions Stadium, and they basically run it just like the NFL combine on TV, for some of those other guys. So a lot of, remember big name schools, it was a lot of like their 3s and 4s of their depth chart guys. And from there, I did the best I could, performed well, trained really hard. And so I think after not getting a call as a undrafted guy or anything, a camp guy, anything for the NFL, that was my first, like, do I want to keep trying to do this? And then I focused on kind of going to the Canadian League, realized that it's really different. Trying to run full speed and run a route, and just that game is a different game. And then I switched and started doing some arena stuff. So I was going to play for the Portland Thunder, and just grinding through and working through that. And I felt like I just was tired. I was tired of grinding for that, knowing I'm not going to make it, right now to the NFL level. And I think I was 24 at that time, 23, 24. And so I just kind of thought like, oh, if I do a couple years here and then I did get that chance, I could be like 30 years old. Is it worth it? And at that time, Aisha and I were together. I knew that's who I was going to marry. We were probably engaged by then. I was just ready to transition and start that other side of my life. And so the coach from the Portland Thunder actually, I had went through a bunch of camp and training things and stuff like that. And that was another time I just went into his office after a long day and was like, I don't want to do this anymore. I want to start my family. And it was the best conversation I've ever had. He and I are still Facebook friends and at times keep up with each other. It was just like a conversation of, he's like, I completely understand. I want to start a family. So
it wasn't coach to player; it was more just two guys who are friends.
Yeah. So
that's unusual.
Yeah.
That's an unusual experience. So I'm glad to hear that. It makes me feel good. But this season, like you mentioned, your brother. This season began with a really profound tragedy. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, he he
this
was
diagnosed. Your younger brother?
Younger brother, yeah. So he was, what is he, the middle child? Yeah, he'd be in the middle. Excuse me. He diagnosed with cancer when he was 7. And so it was something that we had been all battling as a family. He passed away when he was 14. So it was years and years of going through that. And actually that season was really odd. Again, I mentioned a previous relationship. Her mom was diagnosed with cancer as well. And then a really, really good friend of mine, his sister had passed away suddenly in the middle of that season. And so it was just like, and a friend on our team, really close with his grandparents. His grandma, I believe, had passed away. So it was just a weird season where a lot of guys were experiencing some loss. I have so much appreciation for Eastern. There were a couple times and trips and things like that where I either flew back separately or I did something different to come back home to see my brother throughout that season and stuff. So he didn't pass away until after the season was over. It was in January. And the same with a couple friends of mine. But yeah, it was FOE happened to be our thing, family over everything. That was our slogan for the year that the team came up with. And it just, again, it happened to be a year where everyone was just like, in some pretty tough family situations. And I think, especially once he passed away, I tell kids all the time and people like, what's your why? What's that thing that you're doing this for? And that was a defining moment in my life. Was my brother doesn't have the opportunity to, he loved cars, Mustangs. He didn't get a chance to drive a car, all those things. And so I just kind of put me back in that spot. And really back to, like when I was a kid growing up, like there's no excuses. Like, how can I be complaining about this? How can I be upset about this, whining about this when I'm alive? And so it kind of just still puts me back to like when I need to center myself or put myself back into a good spot, it's like I'm alive and I have to do the best with what I can with that. So
how did being surrounded by what sounds like, the way you're describing it, sounds like a really healthy community of other men, like how did that support you? What did that do for you?
I mean, that I'm still just as close, especially a few of the guys on the team, as I was when I met them in college. That bond that we have, that love that we have, that brotherhood. I mean, I think it just maximized that. What we already had, it brought us together even closer. And then again, my team too. My coaches, Coach Adams, Junior Adams was my coach. He's actually now with the Cowboys. Thought Cooper Kupp would end up with the Cowboys, but no, he's there now. And I remember after my talking to him, and funny about him is when I came in as a freshman, I thought he hated me. Like, I wasn't recruited by him. He was just new there. And he was tough on me all the time. And, if you can't bench this much, you're not going to play. If you can't do this, you're not going to play. He just rode me early on. And another funny story off track, but first time I got to try to do punt return, it was like a one and done with him. And that's kind of the experience I had with him early on was, my teammates advocating for me to get out there and, all right, get out here and get one. You drop this, you'll never do another one. And I caught it. All right, get out. And he did that to me probably like 4 or 5 days in a row. Until finally my name was up there for punt return at the bottom. And I'm like, I'm out there for early outs for punt return. And so that's how he was with me. And fast forward to the end, we have a great relationship. We still keep in touch. But he told me, you weren't the tallest, the fastest, whatever. But he'll joke and say, you're the best receiver I've ever coached. Like you had it. I just had to get it out of you. I had to ride you to get it out of you. And so, me thinking, he hated me. No, he loved me. And having that relationship with him, the way he was with me in those times and with all of us, he used to tell us all the time as men, like, you got to play catch with your kids. It's like, I'm going to tell you one thing. When you grow up and you guys have kids, play catch with your kids. And he did mean go outside and play catch, but he also meant be there, be present, be a dad, be around. And that is something that has stuck with me forever.
And I can attest to that. I have witnessed that with your kids. So kind of a left field question here, but you talk about these relationships, these guys that you love. I'm at a season in life where I no longer want to resist the impulse to tell someone that I love them, even if it's weird. Do you do that with your friends? I have a circle of friends and it's growing wider. I'm really grateful at this season of my life where, like, when I say goodbye, I say I love you. Yeah. Like, is that normal for you?
That is normal for me. And it is funny. I think people, it feels like it's not normal for everyone, because people do say that to me about that and hugging. Aisha laughs. She says in her friend groups, they kind of laugh too. It's something, this was just brought up recently, where they're like, they never hugged until she started to be with me. And I tell her friends, one of them was just living with us, right? I love you, a hug and all that. Like, every time we go to and from, I was at the grocery store the other day on the phone with Aisha. Yeah. Hanging up, and we're kind of quick back and forth. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. All right. Love you. And we hang up. And a lady next to me was like, that is so nice that you say love you. And I kind of looked and smiled. Yeah. And I'm like, my whole family does that. That was something too. Growing up, you always said love you. You always gave a hug. You didn't, that just wasn't an option. And it was just what we did, giving your mom or your grandma a kiss before you leave. That wasn't an embarrassing thing. And even people, you kissed your grandma? Yeah, I love her. So that was just normal.
Yeah, it's such a it's not it's normal in I think in both of our experiences, but I would tell you it wasn't for me early on, especially with my dad.
Yeah,
he when I was even at the age you are now, it was difficult for him. But one of the cool things about that is I watched an older man change over the course of his lifetime to the point when he passed away, like, him saying I love you was just so normal.
Yeah.
And so it's good. But I think it's like there's a meme going around. I've seen variations of it, but it's just something like normalize telling people you love them, make it weird.
Yeah.
And so I feel like that's something I want to do more, but it's encouraging for me to hear you talk about your story and the men that have surrounded you and the love that you share, because that's a really profound and beautiful thing.
Hey, Masculine Wilderness Podcast listeners, this is Lauren, your producer. If you found value in our show, we've got an epic opportunity for you. Become an epic ally today and join our fight against human trafficking. Your monthly support not only keeps this podcast going, but also fuels our mission to protect the vulnerable and combat exploitation. For less than one coffee a week, you can make a real difference. Head on over to epicproject.org and choose an amount that works for you. Even $13 a month can change lives. By becoming an Epic ally, you're not just supporting the podcast, you're joining a movement. Stand with us. Let's make an impact together. Thank you.
I want you to talk about the other love, this woman you've mentioned a couple of times,
Yeah.
who I have known since she was 14. I think is when I first met Aisha. Like, what was the moment where you thought, oh yeah, she's the one? What was that for you?
Yeah. I laugh because I think I was just in a weird spot, again, coming from a past relationships and then being single, and just, again, playing football and not really focused on anything other than sports. And so I knew to myself, like, I wanted to have kids. I wanted to get married. And I knew the next person I was going to date was who I planned to marry. And so
you were conscious of that on the front end.
Yeah, I was conscious of that. So I knew, no doubt. And there was, little one-off relationships. I may have, talked to someone, and I was very straightforward with that. Hey, I'm going to graduate college here soon. I want to have a family. I can't wait to start a family and get married. So I don't want to rush into anything, because the next person I plan to date is who I plan to marry. And so, I think I found her on Instagram one time, sent some messages here and there. And we had briefly dated in high school and stuff. So I know there was still probably a sour taste in her mouth with me from then.
Oh, so this was a second chance.
This was a second. Yeah. So we grew up kind of in the same not grew up, but when she got here, her sophomore year, or maybe it was my junior year. I think it was my junior year, possibly. But our groups were close friend groups. So there was a group of guys that were my age and girls, and then a group of guys and girls that were her age. And we kind of all hung out together. And so I tell her, I always thought she was cute. I always had a thing for her. But yeah, we went our own ways, right? And then I reached out to her on some social medias and stuff. She didn't give me much there. Yeah. And I think we ran into each other one time when I was back home, but I laughed because she invited me to a New Year's party. And I remember being at my mom's house, just like, I just got invited to a New Year's party. And I still had friends here, but I didn't have a lot of friends here. I feel like as I grew up, my friend group changed. And so I was like, well, I'll go. I was just like this nervous kid all by himself going to a New Year's party all by myself, and really just to see her. And so I remember we were in the kitchen, and somebody, people are telling stories and stuff, and says something. I don't even remember the whole context, but it was basically, a guy doing something for a girl. And she kind of turns and is like, you wouldn't do that for me. And I was like, yes, I would. And she like kind of whatever. And I would, like, I'm trying to make a point that I would. And I think that was kind of the point where, I still had that like for her and how she was. And when I hung out with her again in that setting, she was what I remembered and how I liked her. And that was New Year's. And so for the next 6 months, we just talked. We kind of just chatted and talked, and we would FaceTime. It's still sometimes funny when we get on FaceTime, because it just reminds me of then, where I'd get out of class at, I don't know, noon or 1 or whatever, and call her on FaceTime and go home. And sometimes we wouldn't hang that call up until 1:00 in the morning, and I'd play video games and I'd do whatever. And we just would be on the phone with each other talking. So it was nice to that long distance part, right? We saw each other here and there, but, and it was tough for us at times, me being not at that time, not knowing if I was going to get to play football. Right. Or go elsewhere. So I think that really built our relationship up too, because it was just us talking and getting to know each other for, I think, about 6-7 months before we actually started dating. And she went into that too, knowing, if I ask you to be my girlfriend, I plan to marry you at some point. So,
that's old school.
Yeah.
And that is old school.
We dated for 3 months and we got engaged. So,
So you've been married how many years now?
This will be 10 years.
Okay. And you've got 2 little ones who are the real deal gym rats, just like my kids were. Like, it's so fun to see them running around. What are the things, like, and maybe 1 or 2 things, I know we could probably talk all day about this, but as a dad, like what are the things that you're very conscious of? Like, I want to impart these things, not just to my son, but to my daughter as well. Like, as a father, what are the things that shaped you that you say, like, I want to make sure these things are true of my kids? I know you to be, and Aisha as well, to be very intentional parents.
Yeah.
So like what are some of those things?
I mean, I think the one thing that maybe not in them, but for them to know is I say, Daddy always loves you. And so that's kind of a big deal. And all I have to say is no matter what, and they'll just repeat, Daddy always loves us.
Finish the sentence.
I want them to know that it doesn't matter. And that's something too in my own family that, my dad definitely instilled was it and my mom too. It does not matter what happened, what you did, whatever. I am going to be that number one person in your corner for you, no matter what. And so I want them to know that. And then too, I think I try to have them be thankful for the things that they have and the things that they get to do in their opportunities and stuff. And with that, working hard when you're doing it. Hey, we're doing this. You get a chance to do this or the opportunity to do this or even something you like to do. But you want to be good at it or you want to try to do better at it. I just am always talking to them about like, be thankful we get this opportunity to do this. And then trying to get them to understand how they want to attack that with just anything and being present in those times. If it's Amaya loves reading books and stories and things like that, so if she was wanting to do that, I want to try to be present and be around that so she can go on and read as many books as you want. Or with her lacrosse. Okay, well, you want to do lacrosse? Well, all right. Do you want to get good at lacrosse? Yeah. Well, let's go toss the ball out in the front yard a little bit. So
I can hear your dad in what you're saying right there. That's very similar. Yeah. That's so great. You're a high school counselor now in a large, kind of semi-urban, but legitimately like low income setting. So you see, I know because where my wife and daughter work as well, but I know there are some really amazing, healthy, strong families network there, but there's also a lot of difficulty when you look at what kids in general are faced with now. Like, what are some of the things that cause you concern? Obviously on a professional level because you have to deal with it, but just as a leader in the community, as a dad and whatnot, what are some of the things you see that are troubling to you, trends, if you will?
Yeah, I think one of the big ones is almost that sense of community, which I say that, but it does come and go. I do think there is a good community here at times with our kids, but I think a lot of kids are kind of for themselves. And that would be the fear side of it is you can be for yourself, and some of this is from the sports world too, but if you're willing to help out or look out for someone and bring them along with you, now as a whole, we could be more successful. And so I feel like I find that a lot. And even just from my counseling perspective, just a lot of people focus on just their own thing and how it's affecting them and not really thinking about the other person.
Is some of that because of trauma?
I think so. And another thing, the fear is the lack of support that I see for a lot of the youth, and whether that be from their own family, from their friends, from someone they're dating, from their teammates, whatever. It's just it hurts sometimes to when you maybe learn a little bit more or see a little bit more or see something with the kid or somebody like that. It's like, gosh, they're not getting a lot of love and support, and that just doesn't feel good, know that.
It's very unscientific, but could you guess, like, percentage wise, the percentage of kids that you encounter every day who don't hear someone in a supportive, authoritative parental role? Like, how many of them ever hear someone say, "I love you"?
I mean, sadly, I would almost jump up to like 50%,
So 50% of the kids probably don't ever hear that in a given day.
Not as much as they should, I don't think. And I think I find that a lot, again, with the coaching part. I tell my coaches, hey, sometimes these kids need us to be their like older brother, uncle, big cousin, dad, whatever that is. because they're just seeking our attention. They really, and maybe it's not I love you, maybe it's the attention, the positive intention that you can tell, and you know too, and working with youth, like after a while, you can kind of tell when this kid just wants someone to look at them and give them some love, you know, and
or someone to see them,
someone to
right?
see
Just
them,
to see
you
them.
know,
Yeah.
and I really have to, I every day's a new day. I do that with counseling. I do that with my job. And I've done that from early on, even back in the security days when I worked here as a security guard. A kid could curse me out and call me every name, you know, but the next day, if I see him, hey, good morning, I kind of give him that look like I'm not holding that against you. Yeah. Today is a new day and we can move on. I think that's what I try to do a lot with our kids too, and tell my coaches that too, is like, hey, they might have told you this, and that, or called you this, but I think deep down that's coming from somewhere else. So tomorrow, like, just love them up and just keep it rolling. And the kids, I think over time, they start to realize that. Cause I mean, I know I too, as a athlete, I got pissed at my coaches. I, you know, maybe cussed at them or said something to them mean or whatever, but I didn't hate them. You know, I don't hate them now. Like, I was just a high school kid, you know, so I try to be conscious of that too.
I spent 4 years in college trying to tip the 7-man sled on top of our offensive line coach.
Yep.
But he made me better than I ever thought I could be.
Yep.
So yeah. I want to give you the last word, but let me set up a kind of a scene here. How old's your son right now?
6.
So he's 6 years old. If you can kind of fast forward and envision this scene, it is, let's say it's the Monday after he graduates from high school, and you're sitting with him in your backyard. Okay, what do you want people to have said about him by that point in his life?
Yeah, I want he is respectful and kind. And he's loving and he's hardworking. I mean, I think those things, if in a sense, if someone was to pull up his film tape,
if we go back to
they would see that he is respectful, he's kind, he works hard, and he's loving. You know, I think it's real simple in the sense of what I want to see from him. It's hoping that I hope he wants to do those same things. I hope he wants people to see him the same way. I think that's probably my biggest kind of, you know, not fear as a parent, but for both of my kids is just like, I hope they want it too. I also need to remember how bad or how I might be too much at times. But I hope they want to have people see them that way too. I know my daughter is that girl would do anything for anyone in a sense. She loves to help people out. She's very caretaker type. And so I just want that for both of them, where people look at them and they're like, you know, they are very respectful. And we get great compliments on our kids. And I believe they are headed down that path, but I want them to want that too.
Yeah. And it's not over yet. You got a long road.
A long way to go.
God. Yeah. That's so good. Ashton Clark, you're the only Eastern Washington Eagle that I might ever say this about, but I love you and I appreciate the chance to have this conversation with you.
I love you too, man. I do. I am very thankful for this. And I think it's cool. It's just so funny how things work out. I would jokingly, I don't know if Emily's ever told you, like at random times, just be like, oh, hey, I was just talking to your dad. Hey, I love your dad. Hey, hi. You know, just like, just giving her crap about it. But no, even today, you know, Aisha, sometimes I don't tell her things I forget. Oh yeah, she's like, what's this podcast? I was like, oh, I'm going to be on Tom's podcast tomorrow. She's like, oh, for what? I said, I don't know, but I'm excited to be on it.
And here we are.
You know, I was just like this. I said, I think we're just going to talk. You know, we're just going to talk. And so no, I was really fortunate. Thank you.
Yeah. My pleasure. This was fun. Let's keep reviewing the tape and keep telling the people that are around us that we love them and make it.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. Thanks, man.
Yeah, thank you.